the reason conservatives would demonize, me or somebody like me, is, coming from the poor and disabled and the powerless, the unfortunates, the troubled populations, is because I think they started out, absorbing the myths, the mythologies, the imagery, the caricatures of the poor as being, romanticized, idealized. And they bought into it, believing, this is what a good person does. They care about the poor, they feel sorry for them, they sympathize with them, they care about them, they love them, they side with them, they sympathize with them. And then they encounter the reality of a human being who's poor, disabled, an immigrant, unemployed, homeless, an addict, mentally ill, whatever it is. And they realize that there's a difference between the way artists, the way the left has portrayed the poor and the troubled and the unfortunates, minorities, as they're often referred to, and the reality. And this reminds me of when I was a teenager, and my mother, who had schizophrenia, had me kicked out one day. The police arrive and they say, you have to leave. And I say, my mother's schizophrenic. She's delusional. Don't kick me out, when nothing has happened. And they say, look, her name's on the lease, not yours. You've got to go. So off I went to the Salvation Army for a week, and then to my aunt, and then off to one of the first landlord of the poor that I had to put up with in a roach-infested rooming house near Ottawa University. And this is when I started to learn the realities. Even though I was raised poor by a single disabled mother, I still didn't, fully appreciate their plight, not at all. It was only beginning. Anyways, a year and a half later, I'm back with my mother in a basement apartment. And I remember when we moved in, it was evening, and I'm coming from the kitchen through the hall into the living room, and my mother's sitting there, and she's eating a bologna sandwich with my younger brother, and my younger brother asks her something, and she responds to him in this infantile voice that she could sometimes use, not often, but once in a while, and I recognized it immediately, and all of a sudden it hit me. It hit me just like that that episode of The Monkees, that TV show where the youngest of them is participating in some kind of scheme or something, and somebody's pretending to be a female, and suddenly he realizes that the female he's talking to really is a female. It's not one of his buddies. And so the picture freezes and the bubble comes up. This lady is a lady. and that's what hit me when I walked into that living room and saw my mother and heard her. This person is a person. Suddenly I realized, like I guess all of us do at one point when we're growing up, that our parents are not a God. They're not God. They're not the universe opening up and telling us, the truth, reality. They are a specific individual personality. This person is a person. That's what hit me all of a sudden. And I think that's what happens to conservatives, is they're people who encounter the poor, and they realize that they smell, or that they mumble, or that they're unkempt, or that they're difficult, that they're overwhelming, that they're frightening, that they're repulsive in some way, human. that they made choices, that they're not perfect people, they're not perfect victims of circumstance. They're not like the mythology, the caricature, the myth. And so they resent this. They feel devastated, they feel betrayed, they feel lied to. They get angry. And they get angry at the thought that they can reasonably anticipate that if they were to bring this to the attention of others, they would once again be bullied by the myth, that the poor are, baby harp seals with big puppy dog eyes and romantically tattered clothing, that they're angels and not human beings, warts and all, good and bad. So they say, I don't hate you because you're poor. I hate the fact that you hate me just because I criticize people who happen to be poor, just because, regardless of circumstance, regardless of the individual they are. And so, they're always coming from that. They're always saying to themselves, I'm the victim because I'm just telling the truth. And yes, they're ugly truths, they're unpleasant truths, they're unattractive truths, they're unpopular truths, but they are the dark side, the bad side, of the poor, the powerless, the unfortunates, the troubled. And so they resent that. They feel victimized. They say to themselves, even though I'm healthy, I'm the one being victimized by the disabled. Even though I'm powerful and fortunate, I'm the one being victimized by the powerless and the unfortunate. And so what I want to say to the left is, you're not doing yourselves, your cause, any favors by demonizing those who are uncomfortable, those who are afraid, those who are overwhelmed by the poor and the troubled. Okay? The very, romantic versus, demonized villain victim kinds of imagery and mythology that you're using is the very one that is actually bringing this about, like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If the more you demonize the critics of the poor, the more victimized they will feel. The more they will then, using those same mythologies, demonize you, and feel, themselves the victim, the ideal one. And back and forth it will go, all the while, the left saying, I don't hate you because you're conservative, I hate you because you hate the poor and powerless. They're being victimized by you, and we're being victimized by you. And of course the right turns around and says exactly the same thing. And back and forth it goes, this totally self-perpetuating tragic comedy, of point of view and error. The message needs to be that the critics of the troubled populations are just being human. Yes, the poor are human, good and bad, warts and all. So are their critics. And so are you, the left. You are not perfect. You are not an angel. You are someone who had to learn, had to improve, and who can be guilty of, that kind of all or nothing sort of portrayal of things as well. In other words, the way to respond to their hatred is with love. And love doesn't mean romanticizing the right and the left, the poor and the rich. It doesn't. What it means is to identify with them, to say to yourself, honestly, yes, I too, on the left, I too, the progressive, feel, discomfort, overwhelmed, revulsion, whatever it is, toward, the other, the alien, the unknown.